team. Today I am talking about something that I have been thinking about, designing, testing, iterating, noodling on over the last probably 6 or so months, which is a framework called the Career Web. And the context here is that, as you know, most of you know, I've been building a portfolio career for the last 3 years, which is a career that has, me as an individual at the center, and that I monetize in lots of different directions, in lots of ways at the same time or in sequence. I have multiple clients, projects, revenue streams. It's constantly evolving, constantly changing. I'm constantly pulling different levers around my income. And as I've been writing about and living the portfolio career journey over the last 3 years, I have started to really realize that the way that we think about career, the model of thinking, is no longer fit for purpose for the world that we now are in. The dominant way we've thought about career so far has been the corporate ladder. You get a job, you progress, your titles and pay and salary and status increases, and there's always been a level of security in the career ladder. Like if you put in the work, if you do really well and you put in a lot of effort and you upskill and you take on responsibility, etc., you have some degree of certainty that you will progress in a linear fashion in your career. But that model of thinking does not stack up in the society and the time that we find ourselves in. I think people are feeling disillusioned with the corporate ladder and the way that we've structured work in general. I mean, I know this is particularly prevalent for women, particularly mums, but more and more people are starting to just be like, this corporate ladder thing is just not my jam. Like, this is not how I want to structure my work and time. So there's a lot of disillusionment, burnout, and questioning happening. And I think that's been a post-COVID phenomenon. But in addition to that, the structure of the economy and of society and culture is changing because of AI, in amongst other things. AI is gobbling up jobs, particularly for entry-level people who don't have necessarily skills and experience yet. It's like, how do you actually get into the job market when AI is automating and taking on the responsibility of a lot of that low-level work? But not only that, AI is giving the individual and businesses and founders, but the individual, huge exponential increases in capability and capacity. So there are all of these structural changes happening. There are these sort of collective shifts happening in our values and what we want from work. And so the career ladder just doesn't stack up in that environment. There is no real guarantee in terms of stepping up a ladder and increasing your pay and increasing your status and increasing your degree of success, whatever that is. And so in response to this, a lot of people are jumping off the corporate ladder to do their own thing. Freelancing's on the rise, independent work, solopreneurship, etc. Which is amazing. It does give you more freedom and flexibility, and you absolutely can earn more working for yourself than you can for somebody else. However, a lot of the thinking and the business models around that type of work is equally as fraught. So if you think about freelancing and typical solopreneurship, most of the advice is pick a niche and provide services to clients within that niche. Become known for one thing, operate that service over and over and over again to the same type of client. And that sort of typical freelance model where you're doing client work over and over again to different clients, the same type of work, is almost just replacing the corporate job. Like, you're monetizing your time in terms of a day rate. It's capped in terms of how many hours in the day and days in the week. And you're sort of on this rat race of client work as opposed to the rat race of the corporate ladder. It's a different kind of rat race. There are absolutely upsides to both and trade-offs to both. But that kind of model of thinking, that traditional freelancing model of thinking and structure, also doesn't necessarily hold up in today's day and age. So both models aren't quite right. The corporate ladder is a little bit too rigid. It doesn't really reflect reality, to be fair. And the freelancing model is brittle. It's uncertain. It is a time for money trade, typically. It doesn't have leverage baked in. And so I have developed a new way of thinking about career called the Career Web, which hopefully acts as a bit of a solution to both of these problems and provides all of us with a new way of thinking about designing our career and our work. That is the purpose of this framework. It's to change the way we think about career and work and adding value and earning money. And from there, to change the way we build our careers actively. And to be honest, this framework is certainly a response to what I've been seeing around me, but it's also something that I've developed selfishly for myself to kind of make sense of my own portfolio career and how I'm building out my income streams. As many of you know, I come from the world of consumer brands. I also come from the world of startups. I am a type A person through and through. I'm a systems thinker. I need structure. Well, I feel like I'm contradicting myself because I'm also very experimental and very much someone who's like act and the strategy will follow, as opposed to design a strategy and then act. But you know, humans are full of contradictions, so I'm sorry about that. But I need a new organizing principle for my own portfolio career. And actually that is the purpose of the Career Web. It is an organizing principle for work in the future, at a collective level and an individual level. And so the Career Web is made up of 4 main characteristics or 4 main building blocks. The first building block, which is the most important, is the center of the Career Web, which is you. You as an individual, because everything that you construct, every income stream, every offer, every contribution, every project, all bodies of work, anything that you do stems from you as the individual. Who you are, your values, your strengths, your talents, your mindset, your perspective, like who you are as an individual, what you know, your skills, your experience, your track record, and who you know, your connections, your friends, your past colleagues, your LinkedIn connections, your, dad, your family friend, all the people that you currently have in your network. Those are the first 3 building blocks that make up the center of the Career Web, which is you. The second key element of the Career Web is these, what I'm calling the radial strands. So these are all of the strands that emanate from you, the individual. And I conceptualize these as being tangible ways that you showcase your value or deliver value to the market. So things like your products, your services, your offers, your mini offers that you're running as experiments, could be a client or a series of clients, a body of work. Like these are all of the ways that you add value to the world, all of your channels of value, tangible value, and they often manifest as like offers or income streams, right? If you were in a full-time job and you were thinking about your job as a Career Web, you might have one radial strand, and that is your full-time job and your full-time salary. But this model says that actually you can have and should have multiple radial strands, multiple income streams that are emanating from you, delivering value to the world in exchange for income, cash, money. So your value is diversified, your income is diversified, you have multiple ways of earning money, but every single way of earning money stems from who you are as an individual and the skills that you have. Now, the important thing to note with these radial strands is that they are not all weighted equally. And actually, you might start with one that is kind of like your core structural radial strand, which I call the core income stream. That could be your full-time job. It could be a long-term client. It could be a fixed retainer. It could be a specific offer that is, reliably delivering income. But that first radial strand has to be a core income stream because you need some degree of financial anchor, financial security to be able to figure out what those other income streams are. So that first radial strand is a core anchored income stream. Every other radial strand that exists around that might be at a different life stage or be different in terms of the weight and the role that it plays in your Career Web and how much income it generates you. So some of those radial strands might be, in exploratory stage. Some might be in experimental stage. Some might be, established but only generating a little bit of income for you. Some of them might be on pause. Like, if I think about my Career Web and my radial strands now compared to where they were 3 years ago, totally different. So 3 years ago, my core income stream, my structural radial strand was fractional work with startups and consumer brands. I had, anywhere between 2 to 3, at times 4 core clients. Actually, it did scale down to 1, but anywhere between 1 to 3 core fractional clients who were long-term projects, committed retainers that anchored my career web because it gave me financial security, among other things. If I look to what my portfolio career looks like now, that core income stream for me it sort of changes, to be honest. I've probably got 2 that are equal size, equal structure. One of them is one-on-one mentoring and the other one is digital products. And so I actually don't do fractional work at all anymore. That fractional work income stream, it's still there. I can still pull that lever if I wanted to in the future, but it's kind of dormant, like it's quiet at the moment because it's not something that I'm focused on building. So this again sort of starts to open your mind up in terms of like your career isn't rigid when you think about it this way. It's something that is evolving. Your radial strands can change. Some can be on pause, they can be dormant. You know, one might be your core income stream, your biggest radial strand, and then that's overtaken by another. And so it's this kind of flexible way of thinking about an ecosystem of work that sort of stems from you as the individual and that you take to market and evolve and change over time. That is another kind of characteristic of this career web. It is always fluid and it's changing, which gives you more options, because if you have multiple radial strands out in the market that you've tested at varying degrees of maturity, you can pull those levers when you need to. Another quick point on the radial strands is that in a solid portfolio career, if you're thinking about how to build out your portfolio of income streams strategically, not all of these income streams are built at the same time. You need to think about sequencing them in the same way that any business would sequence their product roadmap, in the same way that a tech startup would sequence the features that they drop. You have to think about your radial strands as a product roadmap, as a sequence that you intentionally layer over time. This lighting's kind of annoying because I can see the sun rising up, but anyway, we're just going to keep going with it. The next important part of the career web are the kind of connective strands, so the ones that are kind of going around horizontally or in a circle like this. These connective strands, or this connective tissue of the career web, really represents how you are distributing your value. Like you have value going out this way, but how are you actually distributing that to the market? These represent things like your network, conversations that you have, content, your personal brand, your reputation. And the important thing about these connective strands is that they are multi-directional. Whereas the radial strands, your income streams, come outwards from you, the individual, the connective tissue operates in 2 directions. So you can generate opportunities, leads, etc. through outbound actions, through direct sales, through actively tapping your network on the shoulder, through, initiating actions yourself outbound, but those opportunities can also come to you. They can come through referrals, they can come through word of mouth, they can come through your content, they can come through your personal brand and your reputation. And the thing that I think is really important is most people think that they need to have their offers and income streams set before they start developing that connective tissue. That connective tissue can be developed from the get-go. You can start to develop that connective tissue around you so that when you release your radial strands into the web, they have something to grab onto. This is why maintaining your network, building your personal brand, and particularly what I call thinking in public is so important, and something that can be done before you even think about quitting your job, or before you even think about how you can monetize your offering or skills rather. How are you starting to build that connective tissue so that when you launch something into the market, it has somewhere to stick, it has somewhere to land? And so I always say to people who are thinking about building their career this way, are you investing in your network? And are you showcasing your thinking online? Whether it is Substack, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's TikTok, like the actual platform doesn't matter. But how are you sharing your ideas with the world? Because if you can't demonstrate to the world or showcase that you know stuff, that you have value to offer, that you have knowledge and experience, how are you going to monetize that if no one knows about it? So the connective tissue is probably the part that people find the hardest, but that distribution is such an important part of thinking about building out your career this way. I see this a lot with my mentoring clients. This is why two people who have the exact same capabilities, the same skills, the same brands they've worked for, the same types of projects they've worked on, the same soft skills, like if you take two people who are identical, which would never happen, but let's just say you have two equally capable people, if one person has built that connective tissue and the other person hasn't, this person who's built the connective tissue will succeed. This is why you see people who are relatively equal have totally different outcomes. And the last piece I'm going to talk through today is that outer circle. That outer kind of circle, for me, is the story that you tell the world about what you're doing. It is the meta-narrative that explains who am I, what are the different things that I do, why, how do they connect or not connect. It's your positioning. It's what I call your umbrella positioning. So kind of like that catch-all narrative or story that you are presenting to the world. For people who have multiple income streams that are sort of disparate and not directly connected. So for example, I have two, verticals that I would consider part of my portfolio career. I have my portfolio career products and services. So my mentoring, my digital products, my program that I'm about to releasing in July, my portfolio career content, like that's probably the primary vertical, right? But then I also do work with startups. I work with consumer brands, particularly beauty. I work in tech. I do a lot of advisory for early stage startups, right? Part of my meta narrative is talking about how I've applied my startup experience and principles to portfolio careers, because that is sort of like a meta narrative, which is a bit of a catch-all, because when I talk about that, I'm not only building my presence and generating leads and so forth for my portfolio career, but I'm also generating leads for my startup work, because I'm talking about my startup thinking in real time. And so that kind of meta narrative, that outer circle, for some people it is, a story that links two different parts of what they're doing together. For some people, it is their purpose. That's the North Star, and everything else falls underneath that. But I think there is a misconception, or there is a conception, I don't know, like an idea for a lot of people that you should just know the story. It should come naturally to you, and it's just, answering the question, what do you do, or who are you, or what are you building, or what are you working on, should just come naturally. And actually, I think this process of crafting your outer circle of the career web, crafting your positioning, crafting your story, is an intentional act. I can't tell you how many times I've sat down and physically written my answer to the question, what do you do? Or, created a document, and many iterations of a document, probably 6 or 7 over the last 3 years, of me really refining my story and what I tell the world about who I am and what I do. That is an intentional exercise. And that exercise is captured by this outer circle of the career web. I have developed a very, very specific methodology for how to build out the career web. So the career web for me, is really a mental model. It's a framework. It's an organizing principle. It's something that we can all grab onto to anchor us as we build out our portfolio careers. But the real tangible way of doing this is something that I call the portfolio career build method. The portfolio career build method is a set of steps that allow you to strategically build out your career web over time through the lens of thinking about your career as if it's a startup, thinking about your role in that as building out your career as if you are a founder. This approach is something that I've been doing over the last 3 years for myself, but it's also informed by my work in startups. It's informed by my first business that I had, my work in consumer brands, all of it sort of has informed this process. And it's something that I repeat. It's a repeatable framework for how you monetize various income streams over time. I actually launched the Portfolio Career Build Method as a program last September, October. I didn't launch it. I ran a beta with 10 incredible people from all around the world. I'm running a second beta in Feb for those specifically who are in UK, EU time zones. So that's UK, EU early mornings and Australia, New Zealand time zone at night, 7 p.m. Unfortunately, this round is not for the North Americans. I'm so sorry. But I will be launching that as a program in July, a 6-week transformational program that helps you actually build the bones of your career web and gives you all of the tools to continue doing that long before the cohort ends. If you're interested in joining the beta in Feb, March, please register your interest via the form in the little box below. It will be capped in terms of participants, so it will be a relatively intimate group, and it is less in price than it will be when we launch in July, and it's a more accessible, I guess, way of working with me than my one-on-one mentoring specifically for this beta. So all the information, or you can register your interest below, and I will reach out to you with all the information. But hopefully this career web structure has started to just spark something in you and has given you a new way of thinking about how you can actively, proactively, intentionally, strategically design your career in a way that gives you multiple income streams, some of those that have leverage beyond kind of trading your time for money, that builds your presence in a way that generates leads, that allows you to, gives you more control over your future, to be honest, because you have multiple levers that you can pull rather than relying on a full-time job or someone to approve your, interview process. It is just it's an approach that gives you far more control and agency over your own future than something like the traditional corporate ladder. If you have any comments, questions, thoughts, feelings, emotions, please let me know in the comments below. And thank you for being here. I will see you next week.